Hello, friends. It's Amy Calandrino, and I'm back to you with another episode of the Performance Mindset Podcast. I am your host, again, Amy Calandrino, CEO and founding broker and principal of Beyond Commercial, which is in Orlando, Florida. And we've been providing advice to investors as well as small to medium-sized businesses for almost a decade and a half. The goal of the podcast is to expose you to some of the influential and impactful individuals I've met along the way. We might even talk about some business and commercial real estate trends. If you're wanting to grow, you are tuning into the right show. And then today, I'm thrilled to welcome Christina Balas, who is Vice President of Servicing and Operations at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. I met her through my work as a power beacon, and she's a dynamic leader, and she's known for her strategic insight and commitment to driving growth and inclusion within the real estate industry. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I'm looking forward to not talking as much for a little bit. I always feel like at the beginning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm it's the Amy show at the beginning, but that's okay. So,
Happy to be on
well, first of all, I met you in your previous role, but you have a new role over at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. Can you talk about some of the initiatives that you had planned to enhance affiliate performance and satisfaction, and talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I took on this new role, leading servicing and operations for the Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate brand. And I am tasked with a really exciting but important role with reimagining what the servicing experience means for our affiliates. So our model is a franchise-based model. And so we really want to help our franchisors grow. And I have leadership over the servicing team as well as operations. And so how can we reimagine what that looks like to really continue moving forward from a growth mindset perspective, as well as actual dollars, not just mindset.
Right. Well, it all comes down to the bank account, doesn't it? At the end of the day, it's a good, you can do all these different things, but at the end of the day, is it actually leading to that so you can do all these great initiatives? Yeah. So
go ahead. The other exciting things that I'll be working on in the upcoming months is really understanding not just from a growth perspective, but how to connect the lifestyle brand of Better Homes and Gardens with our brokers, our agents, as well as our clients, and how to better create that connectivity. It's really unique that this brand has that connection with the end client. And it's really exciting to think about ways that we can enhance that.
Cool. And how do you have specific ideas in mind, or what are some tactics before you guys have used?
Yeah, so we have a great relationship with Meredith, which owns Better Homes and Gardens, the magazine. And it's really a legacy brand that for some people may have, I have the cookbook that my mom gave me at my wedding shower. A lot of people, subscribe to their magazine, but it's really about this lifestyle of creating home and space and outdoor living. And there's ways we can leverage the data available through our relationship with Meredith, but there's also ways that you connect that emotional feeling with your clients. And so that's really interesting to kind of further. We'll have to see in the next few months what kind of enhancements we'll roll out, but we're really working hard at connecting those dots a little stronger.
A lot of friends know I'm like the hostess with the mostest, and I've been known to have some great dinner parties or holidays. And yes, I have many, many Better Homes and Gardens issues, probably from 10 years ago that I still flip through, that have flour on them or whatever from being in the kitchen. There's so many things I do in my life so that people are like, you do it all. But the truth is, I leverage certain things so that I have time for the things I love. One is food and spending time with kids, so on and so forth. So, but yeah, I have many issues and I have some great stuff. So You have a strong track record of amplifying the voices and profiles of women in the industry. Can you talk about some of the key strategies you've implemented to support women
Yeah,
in real estate?
I'm so passionate about this. So, in the time that you and I got to know each other, I had a leadership role at Cole Banker Commercial, and it was glaringly obvious that we needed to focus on increasing leadership spaces for women in the commercial real estate space, but also just amplifying their voices. I think that what my take while I was during my 5-year tenure at CBC was not just to connect women together. That's obviously important, and thankfully, there's a lot of great organizations out there that are really trying to do that, like Crew or other offshoots of ULI, and so there's spaces to connect. I think what my take was is how can we take that connection to action? So how do we find top performers that are women in our network and connect their secret sauce with other women that are hungry to grow their business? I also leverage so many of the women that you and I both know in bringing their learnings to our network and really just finding ways to connect transacting at higher levels or expanding their businesses, so that there are more women at the top, and not just talking about connecting women all together. So it was really trying to lift the productivity up for our women in our network. Also, it was important for us from an industry perspective to be showing up and participating in different spaces. So, for example, whether it was through CCIM, so Cole Banker Commercial has the number 3 amount of CCIM designees. It's really finding women that would be great candidates to get that education and that designation and connecting the dots, or really just introducing the fact of why it was important and explaining why people should really carve out the time. So it was really an effort to lift up the women in the network that were already there producing in a bigger way. So that was really kind of my take while I was there. It was important to make sure that it was not just an emotional feeling of connectivity, but really a production-based conversation.
Well, yeah, the thing is if you support the women, maybe they aren't thinking of different ways in which they can get things done more efficiently. For me, it really kind of comes down to, how do I evaluate deals better? How do I make better client selection decisions? How do I more efficiently run these deals, through? How do I pull the escape lever if I need to get out because it's not a good deal? And then I think CCIM is very valuable too. You're getting another network, and then that can really amplify where they're at. But if you don't have the support telling you really could get overwhelmed, because often women are primarily trying to take kids to doctor's appointments and still trying to run the household and trying to run a business, which they very much love. But it can be pulling at each other, but how's a way to have it work together?
How appropriate from timing, because in a little while, I am going to have to take my daughter for a tooth extraction.
Yes.
So I am living that life. I am a mom of 2 amazing daughters. They're 10 and 7, so they're littles to me.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all talk about having partnership and family support, and my husband's, absolutely a partner in our household. But there's a lot of pressure of things that the kids want mom to do. And so I do all the things, but I have a job that allows me the flexibility and a company with values that really allows that work-life balance in a meaningful way, not just talking about it. We really walk the walk. So that's helpful.
My husband's a trial attorney. So we have a rule that we are an egalitarian household, except for between 9 and 6. That is his sacred time. And unless I'm out of town or there's a bona fide emergency, we really don't pull from that. So, but he's super helpful, getting him ready in the morning, getting him down to bed at night. But I find that he doesn't have to work late or go in early if we just keep that sacred. And, generally that's where we do that. But yeah, otherwise I have a 3 and a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we're all in it. We're in it.
We're in it. So, you're still a power beacon and you've been part of the organization for some time. Can you describe a specific example where you work to help women make, well, you just talked about making women more money in the field. Is there any other examples that you have?
Yeah, I mean, really just to highlight connecting the power beacons with. So, what I learned from our group of women that are truly power beacons in the commercial real estate industry
Mm-hmm.
was giving my network of professionals access to the types of conversations that I was so lucky to be privy to. So I featured
Oh,
Beth, I featured Sydney. Like there were like some great Delee. Like there were some great women through the Power Beacons that were really crushing their business in their spaces. That I
yeah.
gave them the platform, and I gave our network access to how they're doing things, how they're thinking differently, how they're really treating their business like a serious growth plan, and giving access to different. And who is it also? Veronica, I asked her about. She was really involved with local planning boards, like just thinking about the industry
Yeah.
in different ways and finding different venues to really explore career growth.
Yeah. I think too is I think often the commercial real estate coaches, and I think they're wonderful, but I think for me as a woman, it's kind of hard to always like prospect. I think sometimes, and it's good. I don't get me wrong. I do cold calls, I do knocking, all that kind of stuff, but I've been just very more intentional about building a really robust sphere of influence that my my inbox is just in my text and my phone calls are constantly ringing because I've built like a network. And so like teaching people how to like to build that network that like supports you and how you nurture that. And actually back to Better Homes and Gardens, actually dinner parties.
Yeah.
People want me to bring those back. I used to have these dinners for 8 at my house, and I would have like a couple clients of mine and then maybe like an attorney or like a CPA. Like, how do you create that space that then energizes it? And I think planning boards, philanthropic organizations, there's so many things, and then just having someone that's telling you to go do those things and holding you accountable to doing it.
Yeah, and I'll say like
Yeah.
the one I shouldn't say not necessarily a gap, but the one area of opportunity that I saw a lot of is that there are so many women in the real estate space that are behind the scenes and doing a great job
Mhm.
building the business for their clients, that sometimes they forget about themselves as they're the
Yeah.
business. And so, I was really intentional about trying to kind of explore that with our network of you can do this. And I think the Power Beacons gave me a lot of that confidence too, just talking amongst
Hmm.
trusted women that are crushing it in their spaces of saying, why not you? And when I was talking to Veronica a couple months ago, that was really something that has stuck with me for a really long time throughout my career of why not me? Like, why not? Why couldn't it be me? And I think that a lot more women need to
Oh
really
yeah.
embody that, and not just women. I mean, people, any group that really hasn't had as much access to this kind of business growth mentality. I think it's important to just think, why not you?
I've had that thinking before, like, oh, I don't do really big. Oh, yes, I do. I was just having like, I don't do these big. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I like, I have to change my mindset. And I was just speaking with a client. I helped him buy a factory in 2019. They were at $30 million worth of sales. They're on track for $500 million this year. And I'm getting them more space for another 60 headcount. And like, that's me, like little, Amy that's never been with the big three. And I've been just kind of like operating kind of what you said, like behind the scenes and just building my book of business. And people are like, how did you get these? I'm like, well, I grew them. And like, how did you do that? And I don't mind sharing because I mean, everybody's different and they may connect with different people that I don't.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is very important to quash the self-limiting beliefs. And it's confidence, as I've seen, I've had it where I don't do this. Well, why don't you say like I can't do this yet? Or, what do I need to do to get there and not stifle myself?
Totally. I'll say, like, the reason why I cared so deeply about, women in the commercial real estate space, and now shifting my inclusivity kind of thought process for Better Homes and Gardens real estate, because there's still gaps. I think that the gender gap is less glaring on the residential side. There's certainly always room for improvement, but there are other gaps that we'll have to kind of work through from a diversity, equity, and inclusion space that I'm still extremely passionate about. But I think what's important to for those to remember that it may not be front and center is that when you don't have modeled behavior or anyone to look to, you absolutely can create that path for yourself. Like living the American dream, right? Like you can figure that out. It's just so much harder to do it alone. And so when you can connect dots and when you can connect, people together and someone that they can look up to in a way that feels really organic, like that's where magic can happen. And you can just hit the fast forward button on that growth, as opposed to it taking so many bumps and bruises. Like it just is so helpful.
Oh, it's so amazing. I actually use that as a tactic in my business. I introduce clients to other clients. So one of the big things I do for small, medium-sized businesses is get them out of, I call it leasehold servitude, because at the end of the day, they could lose their lease. And if you could become your own landlord, then you've created this big pot of money for yourself. Plus you have your business wealth. And so that's what I love to do. I've had people before where they start to get kind of nervous. Like, I don't know if I could do this. So whether like inviting a client to my office and I'm like, I own this building, or I've helped a Black woman who owns her own company, but we helped actually another Black woman. She told me she prefers not for me to say African American, but Black. I was like, what's the nomenclature? She's actually been on my podcast. But Tessa Boyd, who owns Elise Aesthetics, she's like, yeah, bring Adrian over there. And Adrian then went and saw what Tessa was doing. And she's like, okay, I can do this. And it's so incredible. And then Adrian went and bought a former church, has room for her speech therapy clinic, and then has all these individual offices that she's leasing. And her occupancy cost is but that's because like Tessa would be like the example. And I've done that so many times. And that's making those connections. And so that kind of leads us back to our first conversations. Like, connections are great, but what is the meaning of those connections and what action is it going to create? Totally. I've never really thought about it that way. So yeah.
And I'll tell you, like,
so like
thinking
intentional.
Totally. And thinking about how that translates also, like, just now with my new lens of residential, like there's, and I'm probably gonna misquote the statistic because I don't have it in front of me, but people that grew up in homes that they're family owned homes are 3 times more likely to own their own home. So it's kind of a similar concept of those that have modeled business behaviors in the commercial real estate space or have access even to the industry really and understanding it can then feel more comfortable doing it. But it's that, for me, the inclusivity piece is taking it to that next level of connecting people to see themselves and what the possibilities are and have someone to that's like low risk to ask questions to really just help them through their nervousness. With someone that's done it that might look or feel like them. It doesn't have to be, but sometimes it just is easier and more comfortable when someone can understand you fully.
Well, it's seeing that person, in the flesh, that they've done it, then I can do it too. I think it's so important. I've had so many women mentors over my career that have really helped me to continue to grow. So let's talk about it let's talk a little bit about technology. Sure. So you're now working for Better Homes and Gardens, but you've been involved with other companies. What are you seeing starting to really like evolve in operations? And what do you have anything that you're looking? What are you guys doubling down on right now?
So for now, it's like what's old is new, but it's just a new concept. So it's really being able to, for me, my perception today is we now have so much data at our fingertips. Like, I mean, it's gone are the days where you're going through a card catalog, like flipping through like a book to like find the thing and then hopefully find the source or call another library, So we have like the world and you were not sitting there with like, paper accounting books anymore. there's so much data. It's hard to think about what the heck do I do with this? How do you turn data not just into a visualization so people can digest it, but into action? Like, so that to me is like the next kind of level that I want to see technology really helping. And I think AI is really at the forefront of helping that. And so it's really understanding the pitfalls of utilizing AI, being protective over your data. I think that's really important for people to orient themselves with, and trying to explore AI in a safe, low risk way without putting out too much of your data into the space. But then to really figure out how it can help you digest your data. It's not necessarily that AI will solve your stuff for you, but how can you leverage it to speed it up? I think that's the name of the game. It's how to use technology to make things go faster, make your decisions faster, make your, data analysis faster so that you can act. Like that to me is where technology really helps practical usage. And that's exciting to me to think about.
What's interesting is I find so many people just plug things into the AI, ask it for a solution, take it, move on. But you can have a whole conversation with ChatGPT and say, well, what else do you think this could mean? Or, and what else? Like, what other, conclusions could you, proffer for this? Truth be told, I read, it's insatiable, my appetite for reading. But then like I pick the top 3 things I want to cover each week for a Monday market update. And then, ChatGPT has been great to kind of like cull out what are some different patterns that you see, or, maybe things that I didn't see. And then you can have this whole conversation. And, is there anything else I could think of? Or one tool I like to use AI for is they can reword an email in the style of another person.
It's amazing.
Like Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. I love his books. And I've had before like, hey, can you reword this in the style of like Chris Voss? And there's a really great way that people then can't argue with those emails. And they're totally defendable. But it's just basically like, this is my email. You don't have any comeback. Like, take it or leave it.
For sure. I have absolutely used AI in that same use case. Like, so I would, if anybody's listening, and I'm sure at this point, probably everyone's, dipped their toe into the AI pool, I think. But if you're still really scared just because of like the data security stuff, like try with like low risk things. An email is a great recommendation. Like I have done it where I want to change my tone. Sometimes I could come off too direct. Which I tend to think that's part of my superhero, but like, but so one of my things that before. But sometimes you want to maybe be direct, but also soften a little bit, so, and I would say that, or I would say too soft, like, you just talk to the AI bot, like it's your friend, or I've used AI in the very beginning for really silly things, but it got me comfortable. Like I wanted to find a song to put on the background of a video I was getting edited for my 10-year wedding anniversary. Super not work related, like really low risk to put that in. And I just said, here's the kinds of songs my husband and I both like. This is the vibe I want to get. This is the mood. And they like give you certain suggestions and you're like, no, that's not really it. What I was thinking is something more like this. And it was just like a fun, low risk, no risk place to kind of play. It's like fun to play with. But from a data perspective, I'm looking forward to AI really enhancing the speed at which we can digest data. Like that is really exciting to me. I don't have like a specific tool that we're using today, but I can just tell that efficiency to me is going to be the game. But that's kind of what drives me at work too.
Well, and Bob Knackel in New York, who's been on my podcast before, he's coming up with the Knackel Land Index, and he's talking about AI being able to predict if eggs go up 12 cents and this happens, what's going to happen with this asset class based on previous things. And I'm like, it would take scientists holed up in a research lab forever to figure out these kinds of things. And so why not utilize AI to help accelerate, finding these conclusions? Of course, then, show your work, cross-reference it, those types of things. I just think If you're not using AI, definitely think about utilizing it. It could be so handy.
Yeah, for sure.
In so many different ways. And then, I never put anything that's not like publicly available, or if I'm talking about sending an email to such and such, I'll describe who they are, but not their name, and and then utilize it.
Yep.
So,
yep, good practices. Yeah. I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, I think you and I are kind of similar vintages, and so it's been exciting to see how life has changed from the analog world to the internet space and digital, and then now the next frontier is just like it excites me. I hope it excites me in the same way that people were as excited when they were in their careers with, the PC being more available. But this is like supercharged.
It's interesting. I'm on the edge, right in between millennial and Gen X.
Yeah.
And then now we have like Gen Z, which I think is just entering the set, in college.
Yep.
And, for me, I need to be pushed out a bit more tech wise, because, I have mastered the art of like going and having coffee with someone, working with someone, but then getting Gen Z out from the phone, like, into the people, then that's what I'm really going to work on with like my interns coming in this summer or later on this year, like, looking people in the eye, shaking their hand. But I think it's so interesting, the different generations, but then exposing, pushing them a little bit further in an area that maybe they're not as
Totally.
Good at.
I'll tell you, I have a prediction
that
the generation after Gen Z, I think they're called Gen Alpha. I think that's what our kids are. I think that there's going to be a cohort of the real young generation, so maybe in 20 years, I guess 15, 20 years, that they will be less screen focused. I think because from my peers, anyways, there's a big concentration of getting back to like our feelings of childhood, like put the tech down, go play with kids, go run in the yard, like the stuff that we are nostalgic about, I think is what we're promoting into the younger generation. And so I think that they'll come in with having both in a real way. We'll see, like verdict's still out, but I see that shifting maybe a little bit in the other direction and evening it out a bit. We'll see.
Yeah, maybe because it was so new and so cool and all these different things. And perhaps now they might come to an in-between. I could see that too. I mean, half the time we go to reach for my children's iPads, they're dead because they've just been like sitting up there. We don't tend to go to them very often, every so often, but, try to do more manual things and
totally. We'll see. But I think it's exciting to think about the different generations all at work. Like I forget who I was talking to my friend Teresa Rand, who's a consultant in the industry. And she was saying, I think right now there's the most variety of generations at work, right? So you have people that are probably still working in the silent generation all the way down to now Gen Zs. Like there's just so many people living longer, thank goodness, but like also working all at the same time. So I tend to think really creatively on how to really bridge those relationships and leverage the benefits that every generation has, because they're so unique in their experiences. But it's such a like interesting time to think about it that way.
It is really, really interesting. Well, can you talk about like maybe a personal story that illustrates your growth in mindset and how it's shaped your journey?
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about your organizations, but let's get to know Christina.
Sure. I am like, I just feel like the luckiest person. So I was born and raised in the United States. My dad came to this country as an immigrant. My mom is daughter of immigrants. And so I really got to live out the American dream. My parents bought a house that they could barely afford at over, double-digit interest rates, but like they knew they had to just buy a house. And so I grew up in this great suburban town in New Jersey with a great education system. I was able to go to college without crazy loans and debts because I went to Rutgers, a state school, and I didn't kind of bite off more than I can chew. There's two things that probably really, and then of course I started working, it was just continued my career there. But personally, I had two things that really shaped me. One is when I was about 10 years old, my grandmother took me on a trip to Armenia, which at the time it was just post-communist, and they were really in shambles. There was no electricity besides the capital for 1 hour a day. There was barely any cleaning water. Like I was the only kid on this like aid trip. Like my grandma was like, I should take my 10-year-old. But it was the best experience seeing people have nothing, really nothing, and really struggling, but still working hard, trying their best, staying as positive as possible, and trying to make something out of nothing and rebuilding. And that really, really shaped me. And understanding the vast amount of opportunity that was at my fingertips growing up just by happenstance of where I was born and raised. I was just, that to me is just dumb luck, right? Like I just happened to be born in the United States. But it really helped me understand that even through adversity and challenges, you can really still be positive in thinking about rebirth and regrowth and changing your trajectory. And so I got to see a country that was just barely forming again post USSR. And then I went back a few times later, over a decade afterwards, and to see the progress and to see how much can change when everybody kind of has the same goal of progress was life-changing, really life-changing. So that was like a huge thing that at 10 really impacted me. And I was very aware at that age that this was going to be like a moment for me for the rest of my life. It was incredible. And then if you fast forward to like my time at college, I was in residence life. I was an RA at the time at Rutgers. We called them preceptors, which was really responsible for teaching and nurturing. And then when I was in grad school, I was a hall director. So I was responsible for a full first year hall. And what that taught me about was two things. One is it was not just babysitting, I'll tell you that. It was really about building community and how you can shift a culture, even in a building, and how you can kind of really build that camaraderie and that love for fill in the blank. At the time, it was the school. But then it helped me really prioritize what's an emergency and what's not. Because, being an RA and being a hall director, besides the fun stuff and the school spirit and the exciting things, there was also a lot of, risk management or dealing with really hard things that students in their early 20s were dealing with. And so it really put into perspective at a young age for me, like, how to level set what's an emergency, where should you focus your chaotic energy, and where should you just try and keep cool and calm, because even though something feels urgent, it's not a true emergency. And so that really gave me perspective. Like I was like, okay, I can really understand what's a real serious emergency versus what just feels like chaos, and how to sift through that.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I get emails or calls like, I gotta go see the property in like an hour, and I'm like, who's seeing the property? Like, why are they seeing the property? And then I find out the client hasn't even looked at the floor plan.
Yeah, you're like, deep
and like they don't even know what they're gonna go see. And I'm like, okay, can we slow our roll? Like, come on, like, let me know. And but I think like, you got to do like first things first and make sure you're handling things properly. I was always told when things speed up, slow down. Like that's a good like saying that I've utilized in my life. And I really have to do that sometimes, because I'll be hit with a tsunami of new things. And if you are rushing through it, you might miss something that's important. And
totally,
it's really important. And sometimes people are like, oh, it takes a while to get to talk to you or whatever. But the thing is because I'm doing first things first. And like, this isn't a critical conversation. It's more critical the things I already have and getting my work done. And I just try to time block and all of that.
For sure.
So
I'll tell you the other thing that I guess this isn't more personal, this is more work, but my personal experience through work has shaped kind of my leadership style, or what's important to me at work, I guess maybe is a better way to say that, is throughout my career, I had some moments that felt like I was maybe unsupported, others that I was shut out. That one was that was my one spot I had that was good old boys club, and that was not fun. But then shifting into my current company, my parent company, Anywhere Real Estate, is where I've been for over 6 years. And so, that's where I started with Coldwell Banker Commercial, and now Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, is understanding what it feels like to come to work as your whole self and really being valued for who you are. That was something that I had been yearning for that I didn't know I needed until I got it. And it really helped me thrive and be my best self and just be myself. And that's really been impactful for me. And just the way I think about coming to the table as a leader of others now is just how can we make sure people can be their whole selves at work? And it's so important. That to me, it's like, that was life changing, that I didn't know I needed it, but oh my gosh, once it felt good, you're like, oh, this fits. Like, this is it.
Well, I think that there was a propensity to make work this all consuming thing to the detriment of your personal life and all these types of things. But if there is a better balance and you're in better health and your mindset is better, you're going to do just so much more amazing work. And like, whether it's, I see a lot of women that do like split shifts, like I tend to do, where, I run like I'm on a treadmill from like 8 in the morning to like 3 in the afternoon, and then catch up again when the kids go to bed. And
Yep.
there's a lot of scheduling of emails or, whatever like works for you. But I'm much better off than trying to push that other few hours and then, basically, speeding into the, daycare parking lot on 2 wheels because I want to try to make sure everything was perfect and everything was done. Instead, I'm just like, this is the way it's going to be. And it's not always going to be perfect, but generally that's like the construct that you have to do what works for you.
Totally.
So,
Totally.
yeah. Yeah. So we talked a bit already about trends, but what advice would you give to up and coming women in real estate who aspire to have leadership positions like yours?
Ooh.
That's a good one.
That's a really good question. For those that are aspiring to take on a leadership role in the real estate space, I would say use the superpowers that you have and hone them and focus them where you see growth opportunities. I think that the way the industry is moving so quickly, I think it's important to pay attention what's going on, but to try your best to think in the future. Now, the future, because things are on supercharge, could be 2 years. Like, we don't have to think maybe 20 years down the line because we don't even know what technology is going to be born in 20 years.
Right.
But it's trying to orient what you're working on for a slightly longer time frame, I think. Like, I think it's important to be the best at what you're doing today. Sure, like try to do your best. Like, that I think is primary, to be like good employee. Right. But trying to take that next level is thinking about how can I work on something that can really grow the business in 18 months or really grow the business in 12 months. And then talking to people that may feel out of your scope in helping you come up with those ideas. Like, I will say something that I am really not shy about is putting on a meeting with someone that I think I can learn from in developing those thoughts that may not have been at my level, in my current job scope, like in my industry. Like, it's finding those people that can really help you think deeper and question you and being, I mean, you have to be open, right? Like, someone might say like, that kind of sucks. Like, and that's okay. You can pivot, but as long as you're open to that criticism. But finding people that tickle your strategic mind and that you can kind of work on that. I'll say I was in this great executive leadership program at my parent company called the Ascend cohort, or the Ascend program. And one thing it allowed me to do, besides offer me great content and learning and all of that and networking, is that it gave me an hour every week that I had to focus on my business. So I maintain that. Like, I preserve that hour to think about my business as opposed to just running in the loop of getting things done. And so if you're looking to expand your role, you really do have to think more strategically at that next level, and you have to carve out time. So, like you were saying about time blocking, I time block. I do time block to even think about things. Like, I'm like, this is an hour where I just need to think about other stuff, and I just put it on my calendar.
I started time blocking the afternoons before I even knew that I needed afternoons, back when I went through, if anyone's a small business, they can go through 10,000 small businesses. And that was sponsored through Goldman Sachs. And I ended up with an entrepreneur certificate, like going through that. But my classes were every day, like from I think 3 to 5. And so I got kind of used to that.
Yep.
And I did that for like 12 weeks. And after that, they said one of the most profound things you could do is keep that time. Don't give it back. And so, every so often I let things like encroach upon it if it's like a true emergency.
Yeah.
But generally, like, I keep that, I use it for gym now. So, but I think about things.
Exactly.
Oh, it's like, it really gets my creative juices flowing. It's incredible. So I think that's great advice. So, is there anything else you want to share, and also tell people how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, really being thoughtful about where you think you want to go. So the reason why I say where you think you want to go is because having a goal for yourself in the future, thinking about like a performance mindset, will help orient the projects you work on. You should my opinion, my advice is to be open to like where that path leads you. It might look different than what you anticipated, but having a goal that drives you will help orient the projects you work on, the things you say yes to, the things you say no to. And no one's going to do that for you. Like, to keep my mindset focused on growth or performance or the future, I've really had to figure out how to do that for myself through mentorship opportunities and talking to people, but you really have to do it for yourself. So I would say try and just find it. It's almost like that. I don't know. It's very millennial, but like a vision board. And you don't have to do like a full board.
I was about to bring up vision boards.
Yes.
I totally was going to do that. So I have a vision board that I can see from above my computer, and it has golf courses on there, and like a New England farmhouse, and hiking, and the word celebrate, because I like to celebrate. I'm looking at it right now.
Totally.
I think Rod Santomassimo too, who's one of the top growth coaches for commercial real estate, talked about you got to be able to vision your future self. And like, if you can visualize your future self, that really will help to kind of propel you and drive you.
Totally.
And
tell people about it.
It's no mistake. All right.
Like, tell people, like,
it's no mistake.
I would totally tell people about like some of my kooky ideas for myself. And some people would be like, wow, that's a lofty goal. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Some people will be like, cool, how do I help you get there? Like, just don't be shy.
Right.
Or too modest.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, there's no mistake that I can see all three of Bob Knackle's baseball cards over there. Like, he built like a really successful boutique brokerage, and I'm like, okay, I can do this. Stay focused. What do I do best? What, even, whether you want to do a leadership position or you just want to even grow in your business, think about what is it that you do best, and like making sure to. And I've noticed anytime I say no to something that's not like in that core, all of a sudden I have 3 opportunities of what like I do best, like all of a sudden come knocking. And like, it's scary, but if you're going to have a performance mindset, you have to be okay to make the tough things.
Totally.
So
totally. And the good thing is, for anybody listening, and I'm assuming you're somehow in the real estate space, maybe not, but I mean, I'm certainly
or working moms. I have a lot of working moms that listen to this.
Well, likely the listenership are not heart surgeons. Maybe you have some, but like, the risks you're taking are probably not life and death. Like, it'll be okay. Like, try things, take small risks, see how it goes, pivot, move on, cross it off the list. Like, say you did it, whatever.
Yeah.
Just stay focused on like a bigger picture and try things. Just try, put yourself out there.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if people want to connect with you, where's best? Is it LinkedIn, email? How do people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. I think I'm Christina Balas. My middle name is Colette, which this will be like a funny little end story. My mom named me Christina Colette because she had visions of grandeur for her daughter. And she thought if I was ever a famous author, my pen name would be Christy Cole. So if you ever see a book at some point that I write, that'll be my pen name. But I'm Christina.
I have a ghostwriter to help you with that if you decide.
Amazing. I might be doing that, actually. I do have some things cooking.
I have 67% through my book.
Oh,
so
amazing.
And I'm supposed to, I think I meet with Mary again on Friday. so that, and I think she started working on chapter 7, but like we still got some stuff to wrap up with chapter 6, and we have pieces of 7, 8. We have 10 chapters.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I mean,
there we go. I'm putting it out there in the universe. I am going to write a book. Look, I will at some point write a book, and now I already have a friend that's going to connect the dots for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, Mary's great. Like, I'm writing it, but then she's like a project manager, holds me accountable. I think that was a big thing we talked about today too, is accountability.
Totally.
Accountability. Put it out there, and don't be afraid to put it out there. So, so Christina Balas on LinkedIn, and
you can also check out my Instagram with the same handle. I'm pretty active on Instagram too. I kind of love that platform.
Oh, I love Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram and not as active on LinkedIn. I would say Twitter and Instagram. But anyways, well, awesome. I'm going to land the plane then. Thank you, Christina, for sharing your insights and experiences with us today. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Let's all continue to go beyond, bringing out and strengthening that performance mindset. This is Amy Calandrino signing off.